Esther chapter 3 and verse 10. And the king took his ring from his hand and gave it unto Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the Jews' enemy. Shalom, brothers and sisters. This is your brother Hawayala. I want to give all glory and praises to our Heavenly Father Yahweh. In the name of our Lord and Savior Yahweh Shai, grace and mercy be abound to the hopeful elect scattered throughout the four corners of the earth that are waiting on the second coming of our Lord and Savior Yahweh Shai HaMashiach. Wanted to go into this lesson just concerning the Feast of Purim. It's a day on which we recognize the deliverance that the Most High gave us during the time of the Persian captivity, through Esther, and primarily led by Mordecai. In fact, many historians also call that day Mordecai's Day because of the role that Mordecai played in making this happen. Because if you go into the book of Esther, you'll see that the protagonist and the antagonist were Mordecai and Haman. Okay, meaning that basically their conflict, or their basically situation in which they were approached in the same situation in front of the king, led to basically jealousy being sparked and envy being sparked by Haman because of the way that Mordecai treated him, okay, and not basically showing kissing his butt, essentially. And a lot of times, when you have a situation where you have your own, mortal enemy, okay, in front of you, especially in a time of captivity, as we know our people were in, many times they try you even more because of the fact that they know you're in a compromising position. And Mordecai, being, a respectful man to himself, did not basically yield to the suggestions and basically the games of Haman. And one will say that it backfired, okay, on Haman, right, because of how the story went. And initially you'll see that there were events that took place, and this is a pretty long read. I don't want to go into the whole book. That's why a lot of times we just recommend brothers read the whole book of Esther. Read also the additions to Esther as well. I always recommend, if brothers have an audio Bible, you can get through this pretty quickly. If you have an audio Bible, if you're working out, you can be listening. You can just lay down on your couch, your bed, and you can literally listen to the whole story and get a good idea of it. But what I'm going to do with this one, I'm going to point out some of the things that brothers and sisters need to know concerning, the identity of Haman, okay, and the reason why, he was considered the Jews' enemy, okay, because, one of the things that we have to understand is that, these other nations know who you are and they know how to treat you, right? Meaning that, and you'll see, that based off of where, Haman was from, you would think that he would have been detached from some of the history that was in the land of Canaan, which is basically had, Canaanites, it had Philistines, Moabites, Ammonites, and, Israelites and Edomites dwelt in the land of Canaan. All right. So you would think that the history will be far removed, all right, and from his mind about who is who. Now, I will go into kind of like a brief timeline just to kind of let you know that time did not heal all wounds, like some of these people say out here. And this is one of the reasons why, when you think about the captivity over the last 400 years, and how people think that let bygones be bygones, things happened so long ago. For one, chattel slavery, all right, of our brethren, throughout the different parts of the earth did not even end, until fairly recently. When you look at the United States, they say 1864, 1865, however you say it. As we know, we have the holiday of Juneteenth. In addition to that, you also have the captivities that happened throughout the islands. I believe Brazil was the last country in the Western Hemisphere to ban chattel slavery, okay, in the late 1800s, okay, almost in the 1900s by the time they had ended it on paper. Okay, so, and we don't even, for those that, study history, that when it's ending on paper, it usually takes a few decades for it to end as a overall practice, okay, because of things that happened, of course, over here with things like sharecropping. Now, in regards to this, you're going to see that the time frame did not change the way that, Haman and his people felt about the Israelites. And we're going to kind of go into the background just to kind of see what we can find in there. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and go up to the top, and I'm going to kind of show you how this all started off. Now, again, I recommend y'all go to chapter 1, read the whole book, but just for the sake of edification, I wanted to make sure that we kind of get to, some aspects of this lesson in regards to the identity of Haman, and the role that basically he played in his situation with the king of Persia, and also, how things turned out to our favor. Now, as you see here, it says in the title, this is on the blue letter, it says Haman's plot against the Jews. All right, this is Esther chapter 3 and verse 1. After these things did King Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, and advanced him and set him his seat above all the princes that were with him. Okay, so basically he was pretty much, you would say, like second in command. Okay, because many times in these other rulerships, these kingdoms, they would sometimes have somebody that is not of their nation that they favor highly, and they would set them beside them as basically advisors, and they would usually give them like a powerful role, kind of almost like a governor, so to speak, right, where they basically can run some of the affairs of the king, whenever he's not around. That person might be the one that they'll go to. So, for example, if the king is maybe, out and about, and there's certain things that the person is in charge of doing, then they'll basically exercise a level of authority up to the level that they're able to. So this is similar to how Joseph had, basically power and second in command over Egypt. All right. So it's kind of like the same kind of concept. Now, usually when that happens, that person can abuse their power, right? In this case, this is what Haman tried to do. So we'll see what happened. And all the king's servants that were in the king's gate bowed and reverenced Haman, for the king had so commanded concerning him. But Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence. Then the king's servants which were in the king's gate said unto Mordecai, Why transgressest thou the king's commandment? Now it came to pass, when they spake daily unto him, and he hearkened not unto them, they told Haman to see whether Mordecai's matter would stand, for he had told them that he was a Jew. Okay, so more than likely, as you see here, they spoke to him daily. So this is basically what happened is day after day, they saw that he wasn't doing according to the king's commandment, which was basically to bow down and show reverence to Haman. All right. So essentially, over the course of this thing, it says that they told Haman to see whether Mordecai's matter would stand, for he had told them that he was a Jew. So Haman told the people that came to him concerning the matter, he told them, hey, he's a Jew. That's why he's not doing it. So basically, Haman knew this. Okay, Haman knew that he's a Jew and he's not going to do this. So let's see how he turns this situation to try and flip it upon our people. So verse 5, and when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence, then was Haman full of wrath, and he thought scorn to lay hands on Mordecai alone, for they had showed him the people of Mordecai. Wherefore Haman sought to destroy all the Jews that were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus, even the people of Mordecai. Okay, so he wanted to basically commit genocide, okay, upon the Jews. All right, so here it is. In the first month, that is the month Nisan, in the 12th year of the king Ahasuerus, they cast pur, that is the lot, before Haman from day to day, and from month to month, to the 12th month, that is the month Adar. Okay, so this word pure, okay, goes back to a lot. Okay, so this is what happened. Verse 8, and Haman said unto King Ahasuerus, there is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of thy kingdom, and their laws are diverse from all people, neither keep they the king's laws. Therefore it is not for the king's profit to suffer them. If it please the king, let it be written that they may be destroyed, and I will pay 10,000 talents of silver to the hands of those that have the charge of the business, to bring it into the king's treasuries. And the king took his ring from his hand and gave it into Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the Jews' enemy. Okay, the Jews' enemy. We're gonna get on that. I'm gonna go ahead and read the rest of it. Verse 11. And the king said unto Haman, the silver is given to thee, the people also, to do with them as it seemeth good to thee. Then were the king's scribes called on the 13th day of the first month. There was written according to all that Haman had commanded unto the king's lieutenants and to the governors that were over every province, and the rulers of every people of every province according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language. In the name of King Ahasuerus was it written, and sealed with the king's ring. And the letters were sent by post into all the king's provinces, to destroy, to kill, and to cause to perish all Jews, both young and old, little children and women, in one day, even upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Dar, and to take spoil of them for a prey. So basically they set it up that they would do this thing, this matter, months down the road. Remember when this was written, okay, it says it was scribed on the 13th day of the first month, and the plan was to have this executed on the 13th day of the 12th month, okay, which is the month of Dar. Okay, and it says the copy of the writing for a commandment to be given in every province was published unto all people, that they should be ready against that day. The post went out, being hastened by the king's commandment, and the decree was given in Shushan the palace. And the king and Haman sat down to drink, but the city Shushan was perplexed. Okay, now let's go ahead and go back up to Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite. Now, why is it here, right? The Agagite. And this is what a lot of, these Edomites that don't understand, the hatred that Esau bear against Jacob, don't understand about this. Okay? And, the scholars of the Middle Age times, a lot of those, which I'll actually get into a commentary from a particular scholar that I've used before, who did his commentary, hundreds of years ago. All right. And as we know, a lot of the commentaries from, of old, especially the, the latter end of the Middle Age period, and even some of the early Renaissance period with those that were very into the scriptures and into biblical history, a lot of their commentaries on point, and they give insight onto who they know these people to be. Because why would it say he's an Agagite if it didn't mean anything, right? So there has to be something important to this. All right, so this is going into, in fact, let's see. So Agagite, let's see what an Agagite is. So an Agagite, it said of Haman, Haman the Agagite. Now, when you go here, it says it's a patrial. Okay, remember, patrial goes into father, like patrilineal, right? Patronymic from H90, an Agagite, or a descendant of Agag. Now, look at this. When you go into the Brown Diver Briggs lexicon, it shows here that Haman was an Amalekite. Okay, so to have an Amalekite, why they say that Haman was an Amalekite? Now, what's an Amalekite? An Amalekite is a descendant of Esau. One of the tribes of Esau was Amalek. Okay, now Agag, let's go into Agag. Okay, so who's the patrer, right? Who is the forefather of the Agagites? Okay, let's go here, H90. It says king of Amalek. Okay, spared by Saul but slain by Samuel. Now remember, when you go back into the time, during the time when we were coming out of the land of Egypt, and we were settling into the land, there was a time when, we were going through, and the Amalekites killed a lot of the feeble, all right, that were in the back part of the camp that were walking. Real cowardly stuff. And this made the Most High very angry. And, that's one of the reasons why the Most High had hatred not only for the Edomites, but even also specifically the Amalekites for that particular act. And when, the first king was selected, King Saul, he was told by command of the Most High to go and basically kill all the Amalekites and spare none of them, which he didn't do. Unfortunately, a lot of them got away. And but Agag, okay, King Agag, the king of the Amalekites, he did not. But many of his descendants got away, okay, and they were able to flee, and they eventually fled to other lands, which we'll get into. All right. Now, as we go on, we're going to kind of go even further, all right, on this particular identity, okay? So we know that Haman is called an Agagite, but what else was he also called, right? So he was also called, this is from the additions to Esther, chapter 16 and verse 10, for Haman, okay? This is the same Haman, it's just that in the Apocrypha, they spell it without the H. It says, for Haman, a Macedonian, the son of Amadatha, all right, being indeed a stranger from the Persian blood and far distant from our goodness, and as a stranger received of us. So basically, Haman was identified as a stranger from the Persian blood, meaning he was not a Persian, and he was not an Israelite. But it's saying he's a Macedonian. So Haman was from Macedonia, but he was a descendant of Agag, the Amalekite, which is an Edomite. Okay, remember, the Amalekites are a tribe of the Edomites, just like the Benjamites are a tribe of the Israelites, or the Levites, or any other tribe. So we see here that he came from Macedon, but was a descendant, all right, of Agag, all right? So when we go into Maccabees, this is First Maccabees chapter 1, and it says, is verse 1, and it happened after Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian, okay? The Macedonian. Now, this shows you the linkage between the Edomites, all right, and the Macedonians at that particular time. And the reason why I have to stress that at that particular time, because when the Greek Empire was formed under these Edomites, all right, primarily, more than likely the Agagites or the Amalekites, which we'll get into a little bit more, people began to move, especially during the time of Hellenization. Of course, when the empires form, a lot of economic opportunities form within that empire by those that are controlling it, and many people begin to move around, just like our people did. So later on, as time passed over the course of hundreds of years leading into even the Roman captivity, you did have Israelites that later on moved into places like Macedonia. However, at the time that we're talking about Haman and the early stages of Alexander and his father Philip, those people that were there, that were settled there and had their home base there in Macedonia, were Edomites, okay? And this is important to understand some of the behavior that you see coming from the quote-unquote Greek people or Greek Empire, which was controlled by the Edomites and what they were doing against the Israelites. As you know, we went over the destruction of Nicanor to show you that he was also called the Jews' enemy as well. All right? It's no coincidence that they get the same exact title. All right? So, now, what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and go to Esther chapter 8. And this is basically how things were flipped around. Like I said before, go ahead and read all the chapters so you can get caught up on what happened in between. I just want to edify you brothers and sisters on these parts, so that way y'all have, a good understanding and clarity concerning this. So this is Mordecai promoted. This is again in the blue letter. This is Esther chapter 8 and verse 1. On that day did the king Ahasuerus give the house of Haman, the Jews' enemy, unto Esther the queen. And Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told what he was unto her. And the king took off his ring, which he had taken from Haman, and gave it unto Mordecai. And Esther set Mordecai over the house of Haman. And Esther spake yet again before the king, and fell down at his feet, and besought him with tears to put away the mischief of Haman the Agagite, and his device that he had devised against the Jews. Okay, again, Haman the Agagite. Listen, man, the Bible does not lie about identity, man. Okay? This right here is very reason why it keeps on being repeated again. Haman the Agagite, Haman the Agagite, Haman the Agagite. All right. Verse 4. Then the king held out the golden scepter toward Esther. So Esther arose and stood before the king and said, if it please the king, and if I have found favor in his sight, and the thing seem right before the king, and I be pleasing in his eyes, let it be written to reverse the letters devised by Haman, the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, which he wrote to destroy the Jews, which are in all the king's provinces. For how can I endure to see the evil that shall come up unto my people? Or how can I endure to see the destruction of my kindred? This is what she's saying to the king. Then King Ahasuerus said unto Esther the queen, and to Mordecai the Jew, behold, I have given Esther the house of Haman, and him that have hanged upon the gallows, because he laid his hand upon the Jews. The king's decree avenges the Jews. Okay, so basically the letter was written the same way that Haman's letter went out, and basically said that to do the opposite. Okay, all right. So he basically switched it to where it was turned exactly around. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go ahead and go to chapter 9. Okay. So it says the Jews destroyed their enemies. So again, the letter was flipped. Mordecai wrote a letter, sealed it with the king's ring, sent it out to all the provinces to basically say that the Jews will be able to do who they want to their enemies and to take spoil. All right. So starting at verse 1. Now the 12th month, that is the month Adar, in the 13th day of the same, when the king's commandment and his decree drew near to be put in execution, in the day that the enemies of the Jews hoped to have power over them, though it was turned to the contrary, that the Jews had rule over them that hated them. The Jews gathered themselves together in their cities throughout all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus, to lay hand on such as sought their hurt, and no man could withstand them, for all the fear of them fell upon all the people. And all the rulers of the provinces, and the lieutenants, and the deputies, and the officers of the king helped the Jews, because of the fear of Mordecai fell upon them. For Mordecai was great in the king's house, and his fame went throughout all the provinces. For this man Mordecai waxed greater and greater. Thus the Jews smote all their enemies with the stroke of a sword, and slaughter and destruction, and did what they would unto those that hated them. And in Shushan the palace the Jews slew and destroyed 500 men. And Parajatha, and Dalphon, and Aspatha, and Poratha, and Adalia, and Aradatha, and Parmastha, and Arsai, and Aradai, and Vajazatha. The 10 sons of Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Jews' enemy, slew they, but on the spoil laid they not their hand. Okay, so these are the 10 sons of Haman. Haman had 10 sons, and they were put to death along with him. On that day, the number of those that were slain in the Shushan, the palace, was brought before the king. And the king said unto Esther the queen, the Jews have slain and destroyed 500 men in Shushan the palace, and the 10 sons of Haman. What have they done in the rest of the king's provinces? Now what is thy petition? Is it great, it shall be granted thee, or what is thy request further, and it shall be done? Then said Esther, if it please the king, let it be granted to the Jews which are in Shushan to do tomorrow also according unto this day's decree, and let Haman's 10 sons be hanged upon the gallows. Okay? And the king commanded it to be done, and the decree was given at Shushan, and they hanged Haman's 10 sons. So they basically put them out in public shame and hanged them, because that's what Haman was trying to do. And by the way, this is one of the reasons why, if you examine a lot of how Jakes were killed throughout the South and throughout really the Midwest, different parts of the time, because everybody always thinks about just the South, but if you get these other books, you have the Red Summer of, I believe, 1919, which was basically a summer of riots in which a lot of Jakes were killed. Primarily Judites were killed by Edomites, going around and destroying towns and killing Jakes. One thing you also know is that there's a pattern in which a lot of ways how Jakes have been killed historically, going back. And if you go into the book Without Sanctuary, one of the things you'll realize with the Without Sanctuary book, see, a lot of times people think that lynching means to be hung up by a rope. It doesn't. Lynching means to basically be targeted and be killed. Okay? So a lynching is basically a targeted killing. Okay? A planned out targeted killing. One of the things you'll notice in the book Without Sanctuary, which basically shows a lot of the pictures of lynchings and how these Edomites sent out postcards to different family members and friends showing about the so-called black people that they killed and hanged. You'll notice that these Edomites love hanging people. And one of the reasons why, and you know, these Edomites hold a lot of secrets among themselves. The reason why they're so obsessed with hanging, okay, Jakes, is in part because of this. Okay? Because, see, there's little secrets of these, like, organizations, these, like, you know, Masonic groups. Remember, the Ku Klux Klan was formed by a Mason. The Confederate Army and the Confederate General, Albert Pike, he was a 33-degree level Mason. There's a lot of different people that were privy to the history that we had among them. And they taught the lower level Edomites to basically do some of these things likewise, as almost like a ritualistic killing. Okay? Because there is something called, you know, ritualistic killing. And many times ritualistic killing are meant to be mimicry in nature due to some other thing that maybe is tied to other energy that was bestowed or happened upon them. So it's very heavy when you think about like why they did these things. All right. So as we go on, it says, verse 16, but the other Jews that were in the king's provinces gathered themselves together and stood for their lives, and the rest from their enemies, and slew of their foes 75,000, but they laid not their hands on the prey. On the 13th day of the month of Adar, and on the 14th day of the same rested day, and made it a day of feasting and gladness. So this is basically the day, all right, the 14th day, okay, is when it happens, okay, which is already passed by the time y'all would see this, this lesson, because I did some other things to take care of, but I want to make sure brothers are edified with this, you know, so this right here shows us that, but the Jews that were in Shushan, okay, assembled themselves together on the 13th day, but rested. Okay, assembled together on the 13th day thereof, and on the 14th day thereof, and on the 15th day of the same they rested, and made it a day of feasting and gladness. So basically you have the 14th and 15th day are considered the times of the Feast of Purim. So the beginning of it, 14th day, 15th day as well. So really when you look at it, many times you're when you're going into that 13th day, you want to think about it now. However, you do have, like, of course, the destruction of Nicanor. So that's one of the reasons why, it's one of the things that's good about this particular feast days that come up back to back is the fact that you see the similarities and how the Most High is wanting us to celebrate and remember these things that he did to them. And it shows you that the Most High is about vengeance. Okay, he's a God of justice. Okay, and these are the type of things that he's promising to his people, those that believe in him. All right, so as you know, this is something that is very, very, important for us to observe and think about, man. I'm telling you, because these type of high holy days, man, it makes you just see the goodness of our Lord and fully believe in these type of things. Have faith and believe in these type of things. This is a time when our forefathers, and those of y'all that are of the Southern Kingdom, understand we could have been destroyed. We could have been destroyed and you wouldn't even have no seed line. You know what I'm saying? We wouldn't be here, but the Most High, because of his word, his promise that he made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, he preserved us, showing you that he can still preserve us in any situation. All right. So again, these days, and this is verse 18, the day of feasting and gladness. All right. Now it says, therefore the Jews of the villages that dwelt in the unwalled towns made the 14th day of the month Adar a day of gladness and feasting, and a good day, and sending portions one to another. Right. The feast of Purim instituted, and Mordecai wrote these things and sent letters unto all the Jews that were in the provinces of the king Ahasuerus, both nigh and far, to establish this among them, that they should keep the 14th day, the month Adar, and the 15th day of the same yearly. Okay. So the 14th and 15th day. So we just kind of passing into the 14th day, going into the 15th day. So it's something that we want to talk about as brothers and sisters. Meditate on these things. Think about the goodness of our Lord. Think about how the Most High had his hand in the whole situation. How he used a sister to, that had a good relationship with her uncle. Remember, Esther was orphaned, essentially. Her parents had passed, and Mordecai had basically taken over in raising her. All right. So basically, even though that was her uncle, that was like a father figure to her. And this is one of the reasons why we sisters have to understand the importance of having a man that's basically directing you in the right way. Because had Mordecai not been there to direct her, she would have just been too busy thinking about living a royal lifestyle while her people got massacred. And that's a whole nother story about why that would happen if Mordecai wasn't there. All right. Because a gift destroyed the heart. If someone gets a bag, gets into a lifestyle, they begin to forget those that they came out from, and they tend to basically identify with the oppressor. And it's very easy for a woman to identify with the oppressor if she's underneath the oppressor. Okay. And they're receiving goodies. Okay. And that's a whole nother topic. Now, verse 22, as the days wherein the Jews rested from their enemies, and the month which was turned unto them for sorrow and to joy, and from mourning into a good day, and they should make them days of feasting and joy, and of sending portions one to another, and gifts to the poor. And the Jews undertook to do as they had begun, and as Mordecai had written unto them. Because Haman, the son of Hammedatha the Agagite, the enemy of all the Jews, had devised against the Jews to destroy them, and had cast Pur, that is, the lot, to consume them and to destroy them. But when Esther came before the king, he commanded by letters that his wicked device which he devised against the Jews should return upon his own head, and that he and his son should be hanged on the gallows. Wherefore they called these days Purim, after the name of Pur. Therefore, for all the words of this letter, and of that which they had seen concerning this matter, and which had come unto them, the Jews ordained and took upon them, and upon their seed, upon all such as join themselves unto them, so as it should not fail, that they would keep these 2 days according to their writing, and according to their appointed time every year. And that these days should be remembered and kept throughout every generation, every family, every province, and every city, and that these days of Purim should not fail from among the Jews, nor the memorial of them perish from their seed. Okay, so the memorial of them should not perish from their seed, and that's why we're remembering this. You know, when we observe and remember these things, we are doing something that is pleasing unto the Lord. Of course, we know in these times we're rehearsing the righteous acts. We know that brothers might not be able to get together, but for us to just talk, converse, acknowledge this day, okay, speak, you know, praise unto the Heavenly Father, Yahweh's name, and his son, Yahweh Shai, and think about the goodliness and the mercy and the grace that was shown in this time, that we may be able to hopefully and have that same come to us in our generation. All right. So then, verse 29, then Esther, the queen, the daughter of Abihail, and the Mordecai, the Jew, wrote with all authority to confirm this letter, second letter of Purim. And he sent the letters unto all the Jews to the 127 provinces of the kingdom of Ahasuerus, with words of peace and truth, to confirm these days of Purim in their times appointed, according as Mordecai the Jew and Esther the queen had enjoined them. And they had decreed for themselves and for their seed the matters of the fastings and their cry. And the decree of Esther confirmed these matters of Purim, and it was written in the book. Okay, so we see there, you know, how the Most High set everything up. Now, as a bonus, I wanted to show you again this commentary that I was referring to. This is in Esther 9. Okay, this is the Matthew Henry commentary of the whole Bible. This is Esther 9. And this, by the way, can be found in BibleStudyTools.com if you wanted to read it for yourself, or you wanted to start, you know, using this tool. Of course, remember, always make sure to filter everything through the scriptures, because sometimes you're not going to get the full details, or you might get a misinterpretation depending on the era in which the writer is writing, you know, and also depending on their particular outlook. However, from a historical context, he was on point, okay, on all the things. Now, I'm going to show you, he also came to the same conclusion, okay, as well. Now, as you see here, we're going to go down to this part. It says, the Jews in the country kept their orders and slew no more of their enemies that were slain the 13th day, which were in all among all the provinces 75,000. If all these were Amalekites, as the Jews say, surely now it was in the remembrance of the Amalek was utterly put out. However, that would justify them the execution of so many, is that they did it in their own just and necessary defense. They stood for their lives and authorized to be so by the law of self-preservation. So basically, this is an example. So he knew, now the commentary, Matthew Henry, he knew that they were Amalekites, meaning the enemies of the Jews. All right. Now, again, we don't know all the nations that were killed in these provinces, because remember, we had many enemies of other nations, and you better believe that we were being troubled in these different provinces by other nations that we had a history of problems with. So it's probably a balance of probability that other people that were not Edomites were slaughtered as well, and it wasn't probably possible to kill all the Amalekites, as you know, it's hard to get rid of a whole seed line of people, you know, especially in this particular time, because you're just not going to track everybody, and people can go into hiding. People live in different places that are where they're unreachable. However, what I want to point out was the fact that he was brought up about the Amalekites, because again, Haman of Amadatha, the Agagite, was an Amalekite. So were his sons, and so were many of the people that were with him. Now, in regards to time frame, this was about 509 BC. By the way, you know, when you go back into the time of what the Amalekites did by smoting the hinder of the part of the camp, that those that were crippled, that were lame, that were weak, and the little ones, the children that were behind. That happened about 1,000 years before this incident, where the Jews got vengeance. So this Hamadatha, this Haman, the son of Hamadatha the Agagite, he's a descendant of those same people. And by the way, Agag, King Agag, which is he's a descendant of, that happened around 1000 BC. So we're talking about 500 years before. Time did not heal all wounds between Haman, all right, and the Agagites / Amalekites / Edomites that were in the province. He still was an enemy unto them. So I don't understand what these jakes are talking about when they just say slavery ended. These coon jakes, these new blacks, right, quote unquote, that basically try and just make it seem as if, you know, racism and Edomite supremacy / white supremacy doesn't exist anymore, and that this hatred has just disappeared. They just, all of a sudden, it will just sign into the law, Civil Rights Act, and everything is just good. Racism just stopped existing. The hatred that they have for us stopped existing. When this was 500 years after his forefather, King Agag, was slew. He still was wanting vengeance. He still had that hatred. And he knows the history that his people, we were coming out of captivity, and you slew, your Amalekite forefathers slew the hinder parts of the camp. And that's what caused them to be so hated by the Most High. All right? So just wanted to kind of point that out in this, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, again, you know, hopefully this was edifying to you, brothers and sisters, and that y'all, you know, spend the time with your family, with your loved ones, your brothers and sisters in the faith. You know, bring up Purim, you know, tell them happy Purim, tell them, you know, about the book of Esther, make sure they remember it and think upon the things that were written. In fact, I'll go ahead and read that again, so that way we kind of set it in stone. This is Esther 9:28. And that these days should be remembered and kept throughout every generation, every family, every province, and every city, and that these days of Purim should not fail from among the Jews, nor the memorial of them perish from their seed. So hopefully this is edifying, and again, I want to give all glory and praises to Yahweh Ba'asham, Yahweh Shai. Grace and mercy be abound to the hopeful elect scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. Shalom.